Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. This time, Karthik has not been traveling and neither have I. But this is Karthik's story because this time somebody sent a car to his house.
Yes.
So, as Karthik likes to say, I was on home turf. What exactly are we talking about today?
Tata Tiago CNG AMT.
Tiago?
Not Tiago, Tiago.
What does that mean?
Small hatchback.
No, that's the name. But what does it mean?
That's your job, figuring out what these things could
Oh,
mean.
it doesn't actually have a name. It's just a word. Like
If you remember,
made-up word.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Okay. Just for context, before we get into the CNG and the AMT, what is the Tiago for those who don't know it natively?
It's Tata's smallest hatchback, right? It's been around for a long time now, 6-7 years, something like that.
So it took them 7 years to stick CNG in it?
No, CNG's been around for a bit longer.
Okay.
But now they've finally got CNG and AMT.
So it's the CNG and the AMT combination that's the first.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the first time that we are seeing a CNG with an AMT being offered. Tata is the first one to do it here in India now. And I'm sure there'll be more. And this is an interesting moment because CNG has been like this second-class citizen almost, right?
Yeah, you only encounter it in the back of an Uber, right? When he presses the accelerator and nothing really happens.
So there are a lot of reasons why CNG has been looked down upon, right? And there are good reasons as well in the past. But we have seen that CNG has become more and more commonplace. It has become more popular, especially now that diesels for small cars, or basically small diesels, are no longer there. So the more affordable fuel choice, the more economical fuel choice is CNG, whereas there is, of course, EVs to talk about, but actually, which is more...
Are these the same EVs whose sales globally are not keeping up with the forecasts and falling, and share markets are moving around and Toyota suddenly rising and everybody else is falling? Is the same electric vehicles?
I think it's the same one. I think
The
so.
ones that run on coal?
Yeah.
No, I know that we are doing better than that, friend. I'm just making a joke.
So, but there's a good point in that. In our ideas, we have jumped straight from petrol and diesel to EVs and seeing that as the solution. But there are other solutions for now that might work better for you. And CNGs in that regard are something worth exploring for a lot of people, because people who are city bound, right? Having a small hatchback to run around with and not having to worry about range is something that the CNG could offer.
And that's not the Uber you're hiring. That's your personal car that he's talking about.
Yep. So, and so now, the good thing about where we're at right now, whether it was forced or whether it's just the timing, the point is CNGs with this Tiago, it shows that they can be your car that is not a second-class citizen. So what Tata has done with the Tiago CNG AMT is that it looks just as cool as the regular Tiago. So if you look at it, it's this nice bright blue color.
Right.
It's got all the similar amount of equipment. There are a few things up and down between the petrol version and the CNG version. For instance, like it doesn't get 15-inch wheels.
Okay.
It doesn't get alloy wheels.
So 14-inch steel wheels.
Yeah, but they look like alloy wheels itself.
Because the cover is very nice.
It's like those cut. The wheels are cut out like that. So it looks good. So in every regard, it looks nice. It's got the DRLs, projector headlamps, all of that. And I'm talking about this Tiago CNG here, but Tata has done the same thing with the Tigor CNG as well, which is the sedan version of the Tiago.
Got it.
Right. So that's also available with an AMT. It also has the similar kind of equipment, looks, and sense of premiumness. There are a few differences between the two, like on the inside, the Tigor gets leatherette upholstery, whereas the Tiago doesn't.
Okay.
Both of them get a few additional features compared to the ICE. So there's a little bit extra here, like auto headlamps, auto wipers, and USB-C charging port. So at least some little bit extra has been thrown in here. Something I did not like was that there are seatbelt reminders for all 5 seats.
Okay. With no pressure sensors.
No load sensors at the back.
Oh no.
And I forgot to talk about this in the Punch EV. It was the same in the Punch EV as well.
So these cars are just like beeping away to glory until you plug everything in, even if there's no passenger in it.
Yeah. So remember we complained about this when we first saw this in the Francs, and we were aghast that this is the way forward. I mean, to save whatever $10,000.
If you're responsible for this, no matter which manufacturer you work for, if you are the guy who decided that removing the load sensors was a great way to cut money, you have no idea what your customers think is convenient automotive experience. You are the one ruining it. And I'm not joking right now. I don't even like cars all that much, but I have your number. That's terrible. I mean, honestly, it's terrible. It's not bad enough that a car beep at 80 and then scream at us at 120. There are other cars that are judging us and all of this stuff. I can look past all of this. Can you imagine it? The damn thing is just beeping and beeping and beeping until you pull over to the side of the road and plug every seatbelt in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's just stupid.
It's really an excellent way to kill the experience. So
yeah, I think what you want is for everybody to sit in a bus, right?
Coming back to the Tiago CNG and the Tigor CNG. So slight feature differences, slight feature additions.
Are there features that they have removed in the process apart from what you said they've added?
So like we said on the outside, that there are no alloy wheels.
That you mentioned, yes.
Yeah. I think dual tone option is in there.
Okay.
There are some small things like that.
Oh, so it's not like a feature cut to manage the price?
No, like it gets the same infotainment setup, 6 speakers or whatever, it's good sound system.
Are all the screens aligned to each other?
This is fitted into the dash, so there's no alignment issue there.
If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to ask you to write a comment this time.
So yeah, in terms of equipment and all, by and large, it feels good, right? The difference between the Tiago and the Tigor is down to the size of the tanks for the CNG. That's in the boot, right? The Tigor gets a 35 plus 25.
35 plus 25.
That's for the Tiago.
Yes.
And the Tigor gets 35 plus 35.
70.
Yeah. So the Tigor is a bit more expensive because of the tank size and the leatherette upholstery, I guess. And
okay, so these are 3-cylinder, twin-cylinder cars.
Yes.
Where the second set of cylinders is measured in liters by Tata, but you'll buy the fuel in kilos.
Correct.
So it has no relevance to the user at all unless somebody puts in a figure and says, so these many liters is equal to these many kilos. Can you please do that for us?
Yes. So this is a estimate as of now that it is about 8 to 10 kilos of CNG for that 60-liter tank in the Tiago. And Tata claims that the fuel efficiency is about 28 kilometers per kilo of CNG. So that's solid, over 250 kilometers.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that in the city, you can expect the CNG range to be about 200 and above.
Okay.
I did not measure the efficiency in the drive that we had. I did drive it about 100 kilometers, but I didn't do a test because I was switching between the petrol and CNG modes constantly to just figure out
how do you switch between the modes? Is there a switch or something?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things I want to cover before we get down to driving is that the sense that this is like a normal car and it just doesn't feel like a CNG. On the outside, you don't have that CNG filler sticking out somewhere like a sore thumb. It's integrated into the fuel filler door, right? They have a nice system. There's a switch there as well. So if the door is open, the car won't start. So you can't accidentally turn on the car or anything while CNG is being filled up. So small things like that.
Okay.
On the inside, there are no little, I know this has become the norm, but it's still nice to see these things. Earlier, the image of CNG, I think, was spoiled by these because they used to be aftermarket kits, right? So you used to have those small little gauges to indicate how much CNG, those dots, right? Those LED dots. So now when you look at the instrument cluster, there are 2 displays for fuel on the right hand side. One is for CNG, one is for petrol, right? So it's very nicely integrated. It looks seamless. The CNG switch also is on the center console. It's a nice little button with CNG written on it. And so you can choose to switch it off when you want, as in not use CNG. So this car by default starts up on CNG, which is also a little interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think most vehicles do that. They start on petrol and switch back to CNG, right?
Because the explanation was that petrol has better lubricity, right? So basically it lubricates the internals of the engine better than CNG does. So whenever it starts up, it just provides a bit more protection for the cylinder, the piston, the rings, all of that. But now the Tata versions start up straight on CNG. So you can drive the car on CNG only pretty much all the time.
How have they done that?
So I did ask them that. I have not got a confirmation as to how that has been managed. I would guess it's something to do with the grade of the oil or something like that. But I don't have a confirmation on that. I did ask them this. But
Okay.
the point being, they also have put a sticker on the door. So when you get into the car from the driver's side, there are 3 stickers, There's the usual tire pressure label.
Right.
Then there's another one for warning about the CNG system, etc. And there's another one saying that every 300 kilometers that you do on CNG, drive your car on petrol for sure for 10 kilometers. Because this is going to be an instance where you can just stick to CNG, right?
So why don't they just have an automatic thing in the car that switches you to petrol for 10 kilometers and switches back to CNG?
I guess they could do that, but this is just from I think it's easy enough for people to just switch that way.
Yeah, but people forget.
That's true.
Right? It's not that they would do it with malicious intent, but they would just forget because, hey, you've been on CNG for a while now.
So here's the reason why you need to do it and do not forget, because if the injectors don't work for a prolonged period, the injectors will start gumming up, which is basically fuel when it's just sitting there unused, it starts getting sticky. So then the injectors won't work properly.
Yep.
So you don't want that happening. So these are some of the things that I noticed. And interestingly,
yeah, and remember that it's not a deal breaker. The injectors can be cleaned out. It's just a hassle. So if you want to avoid the hassle, every 300 kilometers, you have to drive a little bit of it.
Yeah. And I would just, anyways, we'll get to that part later.
Is the petrol tank size also known?
It's 37 liters. It's
a regular petrol tank.
It's a regular.
Oh, wow. So if you combine the two, you have quite a bit of range.
You have a lot of range.
Right. Okay.
You have a lot of range.
And therefore, if you wanted to think of the Tiago CNG as a car you drive out on the highway with your family and you are worried about the CNG availability situation, is not actually a problem.
Not at all.
Okay.
Because at any given point in time, you can use petrol. You don't have to use CNG. Right?
So if they had a small hybrid system also in there, then they'd cover like the whole gamut, right? I mean, everything else, all the other fuels are already in this car.
Hydrogen bhi add kar do.
We knew when it happens. But I know really, I mean, as much as I'm making a joke of it, I think it's really cool that you have a full-size fuel tank for petrol and then a decently sized CNG tank also. So you do enjoy the duality of having a cheap fuel which you use around the city.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop you from going out on the highway with the worry about, oh, CNG nahi mila to kya hoga?
Since you're talking about the highway, the twin cylinder tank layout, the advantage of that is it doesn't eat into your entire boot space. Right. This has...
Which is, I think, why they created the system. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this now has about 100 liters of space, which isn't much. Right?
No, but they should just measure it up to the roof like Hyundai does. No, then it'll be a lot.
It doesn't have a rear parcel tray. So effectively, it's like, okay, just stack it up, right? So the Tiago, the one thing it doesn't get is the rear parcel tray.
Okay.
In the Tigor's case, you still have over 200 liters or something like that of storage. But in the Tiago's case, you have 100, and it's a narrow space then, right? But there's no parcel tray, so then it's convenient. You can just throw stuff in over there, right? So yeah.
And you said the boot has a space saver in it. It's not a full size.
So it's underneath. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Because the tank. Yes.
Got it.
Exactly.
That's how you take the wheel out.
So the tanks are there. So the space saver is underneath.
Got it.
So I can see this being used for something more than just sticking in the city or having to think too much, right?
Yeah.
Very often, if you have boots that are not very large, using soft bags is a good way to pack in a lot more, which you could do with this reasonably well. Like for weekend trips for a small family, I think you can manage. Bigger stuff like bigger suitcases and all, it's still not going to happen, right?
Eject a passenger suitcase in.
Yeah, that's the only way. So while you can go out on the highway and you can spend time with it there's a certain mood that CNG likes. You spoke about that ghad, right? When CNGs first came in. Now, when you drive these, you realize how smooth and fluid they are. Like I was basically testing myself blind by going on hitting the switch so that I don't know which mode it's in.
Right.
And just having to guess what it's on. At city speeds, it was not so easy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The drivability is good. So the difference between the pure petrol and this, there's a difference in the amount of power that the engine makes, even in petrol mode.
Okay.
Is down by 3 PS or something like that.
Okay.
In CNG, it's down by another 10 PS.
Okay.
Right? Torque is also down. But at low speeds, you don't feel it that much.
Okay.
It's like if you're in a hurry, when you want to go faster, then you feel that it's slightly slower. Right? The difference will be felt when you're on the highway. Right? If you're driving calmly, like I was alone, and I was just cruising, it was fine.
It's only when you demand the performance that you notice the difference.
The second that I realized that there was a vehicle coming up fast behind me and I just needed to overtake this vehicle and get out of his way, I realized that, it's not going as fast as I wanted.
So just for the people who are at a very basic level in terms of knowledge, when you add nitrous to a car, it goes faster. When you add CNG to a car, it goes slower. Why is that, Kartik?
Why is that? Must be something to do with how much energy is there for a certain volume that is given into the engine. No?
I'm asking you the question. You're the expert here.
So quite simply, the reason why this happens compared to petrol is that per unit of volume, the CNG has less energy in it compared to petrol, which is the same thing for diesel versus petrol, which is why diesels are more fuel efficient compared to petrols.
Also ethanol. Ethanol also has less caloric value than petrol, which is why you'll start noticing as ethanol vehicles start coming with E20, etc., the fuel tank will just start to grow a little because economy will fall and therefore range will also fall. To accommodate that, you'll get larger fuel tanks.
So you'll carry more weight around.
We are saving the earth in some weird haphazard fashion, but we are saving the earth.
So on the highway, I think this is a vehicle that you will use occasionally. As a city vehicle, I really wouldn't see this as a compromise.
Right.
On the highway, you will feel that compromise. You will feel that difference. And you will have to settle into a certain kind of usage and mode, be it in terms of the storage, be it in terms of the driving. In the city, you don't feel that way.
Oh, I can explain this very quickly, very easily. So I have the Tiago brochure here. Okay, you see this photograph here, this one? That's not the highway mode. Right?
See the buildings in the background, right?
Yeah. No, so this is not the highway mode for sure. Like this lady is way too excited about this car for highway use, right? In the city, this is when she's calculating how much money she saved by buying CNGs or petrol at the end of the month. It has nothing to do with driving the car either. Have I got this right, Kartik, more or less?
You're on it, man.
Right. I like props.
He's been saving that. Okay.
No, as soon he was reading the brochure to figure out the variants or whatever, and I was looking at that lady and I said, no way, she does not belong on a CNG brochure. So I saved it for later. Whoever you did this agency, thank you so much.
So now coming to the Tiago CNG AMT part, right? Now the CNG there's no two ways that it's working smoothly. The transition between petrol to CNG, CNG to petrol is practically invisible.
And performance is realistic rather than exciting.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only way you have to think about it is CNG is the economy mode. When you want power, you go to petrol.
Got it.
Right? That's as simple as that. So you're switching off CNG is saying, I've gone into sports mode.
Got it.
That's how it is. And you'll feel that difference in performance when you are upwards of 3000 RPM. Like where it's a distinct difference. You feel a bit more peppiness even under that, like in city speeds. But the difference is distinct when you're revving higher. So which is like said for the highway use and stuff like that. The good thing about the AMT also is, and now they have what they have done with the CNG and the AMT. The CNG has added about 110 kilograms of weight to the Tiago.
Sure.
Right? They've retuned the throttle so that the responsiveness is right, keeping that weight in mind.
Okay.
They've retuned the suspension so it strikes the right balance. It rides well. It doesn't get bouncy at the back and things like that. So interestingly, when I don't know, it just so happened a few days earlier, somebody asked me, why is it always that the tire pressures for the front are more than the rear in cars, right? So because the load is there. Now, for the CNG, it's the tire pressure higher at the rear because you do have a lot of weight sitting there. The cylinders themselves are heavy. So there's more weight sitting there. So it's more biased towards the rear. So it's higher pressures.
Which also means that if you buy one of these cars, remember that when you're filling air at the petrol pump, you'll have to warn them that the pressures are not normal pressures because they'll see the Tiago and fill whatever they think is the normal pressure for Tiago before we talk about whether their machines are calibrated or not.
Yeah. So they've retuned the suspension and suspension, easy to tackle that first straight up. After some point, I stopped bothering with speed breakers and potholes. It would take the big stuff really well.
Okay.
Like you would think you would have to watch over that, but that's the thing. It just handles beautifully.
Okay.
So I can imagine this with a family and a load will still be comfortable. It's the smaller stuff at lower speeds where you feel a little bit of that firmness because it is a heavier car. They have retuned it, all of that, but nothing that feels uncomfortable. You notice it, but on the whole, it feels well balanced. Right. I can draw a parallel to the to the Punch EV, which despite that additional weight and all, didn't have these tendencies. That's because the chassis itself was ground up, right?
Correct.
So there's a difference here in that, in the way that this is working. So the Tiago CNG AMT I did not move into manual mode consciously.
Got it.
I just used it. I said, at a point where I feel that it's getting in my way, I will switch. I'll use manual mode and see what it
And you
does.
didn't feel like you had to at all.
I spent a lot of time driving through Pune. I went around to some of the hilly areas, used it there, and it has creep function. So even in traffic, even on the slopes, it just crawls easily, smoothly.
Very
so
nice.
It's a convenient city car.
Got it.
Right? And it's going to be efficient. Whatever they're claiming, basically, this is a lot more wallet friendly because to recover the additional cost of this CNG, you will have to run it maybe 30,000 kilometers.
Okay.
Which maybe for many people is a couple of years. And for heavy users, less than that. Right? So it's a more convincing buy for somebody who's looking for something more economical in terms of running costs. And at the same time, doesn't have strings attached in terms of range or worrying about resale or maintenance or insurance and stuff like that.
If I were to contrast the AMT in this versus a regular petrol Tata AMT, you'd get the same kind of smoothness and all of that?
It's been a while since I drove the Tiago AMT, the pure petrol. But I remember that also being reasonably...
The pure is a persona?
There are no personas in this.
Okay, sorry, there's no personas in this.
It's just the XE, XM, XT, XZ.
Okay, so sorry. Back to the. I'm sorry to do this. Back to the AMT. So Tata AMT. The last time you drove it, was this a smooth experience?
It was smooth,
so it remains in.
It's well suited for city use. It's smooth. It's quick enough. It doesn't get stuck at points. Interestingly, it holds on at times, which I liked because it's just when you're in the mood for accelerating a bit more that it's held on. So it felt convenient and well thought out.
So the logic is working.
Yeah, the logic is working.
Very good. Very good.
So the AMT part of this car, which is the really new part about this car, worked.
Okay.
I didn't really have to go into manual mode. Even if you go into manual mode, are you going to find this to be a much quicker car to drive? No. It
didn't sound like it from whatever he said so far.
It's not that car, right? It's meant to be convenient. It's meant to be friendly. It does.
I just had an idea.
Bolo?
See, it's already the Tata Tiago CNG AMT. Just add a JTP at the end of it and get it done with.
Wow. Oh my God. That'll be it.
If you think that a Tata Tiago CNG AMT JTP was a good idea, leave us a comment. I mean, if you don't vote, how will we know it? If we are going to make CNG more than just the bargain basement fuel, we're going to have fun with it. Which means somebody's going to have to build a performance car out of it.
Absolutely. And throw in a hybrid at it while you're doing that.
That's the only thing Tata's missed out. It's such a small thing that Tata missed out. If they had also had a hybrid, then be all the fuels available. In fact, that reminds me of the first podcast episode we did. Or was it the second? No, the first one. Where we talked about how electric vehicles today and tomorrow, you remember?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how the future will be about the plurality of fuels.
Absolutely.
That's literally what we're talking about right now. Because if you think about it, we've touched upon the idea that hydrogen is next. That EVs are here and we're not fully convinced that they are the whole and sole solution. There's two kinds of hybrid systems, which we are seeing one and we will see one shortly. Diesel is fading out. Petrol is coming in. CNG is supplementing petrol. See how many fuels we're already using.
Right.
And God knows what will happen next.
And we need them. We need all of them.
Yeah. And we need public transport also. Not everybody should have to get a car or a bike as a default to be able to get around the planet. There should be other alternatives that are easily available too. Also about plurality of fuels.
So I'm hoping that Tiago CNG AMT, Tigor CNG AMT is the start of premiumization of CNGs. I think it deserves it because for a lot of people just commuting in the city, they are good options. They're convenient options. And with diesel going out, this would still work. And the government has said that there's going to be many more CNG pumps. So the queues outside CNG stations will be more reasonable. And I think that has been happening. I do see some pumps which are chronically choked, but not all of them.
Have you noticed how the pumps that are chronically choked have the happiest owners?
I haven't gone to too many to notice that. But yeah.
But honestly, despite all the jokes, the few times that I've been in a cab that has stopped for CNG in the I'm going to say last 6 or 7 months, I haven't actually stopped at a single pump that was terminally choked where I had to tell the guy saying, listen, we don't have time to do this. Let's just go from here and go to another pump along the way or something. I've just never had to do it. So clearly that situation is at least as far as I can tell, behind us. If it's not that situation and you suffer from CNG availability, tell us where you are and how often it faces you. It'll give us a sense of what's going on out there in terms of CNG pumps.
Yeah, because it will vary from region to region, because that network expansion, I don't think will be equal.
And I also think that CNG in cars is good for people because you have to get out of the car, a little bit of exercise every time you fill gas. Or is that still true? Or now you can fill CNG while you're sitting in the car?
It's not.
Let me summarize this question. It's become too long. Do you have to get out of the car to fill your CNG?
I think so.
You
At least
still
the
have
last
to.
pump that I went to. It's been a month or so. Yeah.
Okay. No, because I think you do have to get out. It's
Yeah.
a safety regulation saying you have to be outside the car when you get filled.
I think it's a good idea.
No, I'm not saying it is. It's a bad idea at all. Exercise. What have you missed, Kartik?
As a hatchback, what's it like in the back seat?
Yeah.
It's a small car. But the Tiago's been surprisingly spacious, and so is the back seat. You have plenty of headroom, good knee room. The only thing is that the seat itself is not very long, so you don't get great support. Again, city use, I don't think I'd have a problem with sitting there, and even 6-footers would be reasonably comfortable over there for shorter journeys. Longer journeys, I don't think so, because there's just not enough support.
Got it.
So that's same as the regular Tiago. So not much of a difference on that front. And so again, rounding it off, I think it's as a city car, the smoothness, the quietness, the ease of driving, the ease, especially at low speeds, makes it convenient and now fuel efficient with the CNG and the AMT combination.
Got it. I think that means that I am now ready to do the quick summary. On MotorInc First today, we were talking about the Tata Tiago CNG AMT. And it's the combination of the CNG and the AMT that is the actual big event. So far, the CNG fuels have been treated slightly down market, and Kartik really enjoyed the idea that the Tiago's features have been cut in only a couple of areas, like there's no alloy wheels. It's a steel wheel with a nice cap on it. But most of the features in the car remain where they are, or they've actually increased in number, which is a good thing to happen, because if CNG as an efficient fuel, as a relatively inexpensive fuel, is going to become more popular, then the cars it goes into cannot be down market cars. They also have to match what the current standard is. And as far as Kartik can tell, the Tiago actually does that. Let's quickly talk about what's common to the main car. It's still a spacious little car. It's a very city-oriented car. You'll sit comfortably in the back. The seat is a little bit short. You won't get a lot of support for your thigh. But for short trips around the city, that's not going to be a problem. The boot is just about 100 liters. It's not huge, but there's no parcel tray, so you can stack it up Hyundai style if you like. And the space saver spare wheel is under the car, where also are the twin CNG tanks. So effectively, this is a 3-cylinder engine in the front and a twin-cylinder car at the back.
The cylinders are in the boot, not underneath.
Sorry, the 2 cylinders in the boot contain the CNG. On the Tiago, they are 35 and 25 liters. And on the Tigor, they are 35 and 35 liters. But remember that these liters is just the capacity of the tank. You don't actually buy CNG in liters, you buy it in kilos. So then there is a conversion involved. I don't know why it has to be so confusing, but thank you so much. And now I can tell you that the Tiago CNG will take
about 10 kilograms.
About 10 kilograms of CNG at max, but it still has a full-size 37-liter petrol tank, which means around the city, you can very easily use CNG. Range should be about 200. Refilling should be easy because the cities do have CNG pumps. But if you're out on the highway, and it's not really a highway car, but it's not restricting you into staying into the city. If you go out on the highway, you can still run on petrol, fill petrol, and continue your trip with 4 members of your family, maybe a 5th. But if you fill up the car that much, luggage will be a challenge, because remember, this is still a reasonably small car. Now, what he really enjoyed about the car is not only can you switch between CNG and petrol whenever you like, not only can the car switch on in CNG to the point where Tata has to warn you to remember to run it on petrol every 300 kilometers, lest you gum up your injectors. The point here is, it doesn't feel like the CNG makes the car's performance suffer unless you're really trying to get hard acceleration. And hard acceleration is not what the Tiago does anyway, because remember, it's a family hatchback. So if you're driving around the city in full CNG mode, you won't notice much of a difference in performance. Out on the highway, when you're trying to overtake someone, that's the situation where you might feel a little bit of lack of power, because remember, this petrol engine, 3 bhp under normal, and when CNG is running, it's 10 bhp under that.
Correct.
The addition of the AMT changes your experience a bit, because Tata's always had a reasonably smooth AMT that continues into the CNG version, and you don't really need to use manual mode to recover anything. And if you do, it's not like the car is going to feel a heck of a lot sportier anyway. So this is a convenient car. It's a gentle car, I'm going to say. It's not something you'd buy for the pleasure of driving, but it is practical. It is going to be economical. You can run both the fuels if you like. All Tata missed was hydrogen and hybrid, then they'd cover the whole gamut. But jokes aside, it's reasonably priced. It's spacious. It's pretty smooth. You don't notice performance drops just because you're in CNG. And you've got the option to run petrol because you still have a full-size petrol tank, which I think checks a lot of boxes. The only box it does not check is you probably will not look like this except when you're calculating the fuel bills at the end. Have I missed anything?
Suspension.
Sorry. And the Tata suspension is actually quite comfortable. Over most of the bumps that Kartik hit, it felt really comfortable and poised. The only thing is, because it's a relatively small car, there is a little bit of side-to-side shake, which is more something you notice than something that will make you uncomfortable.
Correct.
Have I got it?
Absolutely.
And the one he drove is in a bright blue color. There's no CNG badges on the outside, so it actually does look like a regular Tiago, and that's a good thing.
It's got the iCNG badge, no ports or anything. I mean,
oh, sorry. The badge is there, but the fuel filler cap, when you open it, as long as it's open, you can't start the car, but the fuel filler for the petrol and the nozzle for the CNG are both in there. So it's neatly integrated. It looks good.
Nice. Very cool.
I was paying attention. And I didn't interrupt Kartik as many times as you accused me of this time either. In fact, I am actually feeling like this right now because I think I did a really good job this time.
That's my reaction for this summary. It's like, wow, Shumi.
It's so good that you're about to spill the coffee over your shoulder. Okay, I think we've made enough fun of the brochure.
So I just whatever, when Shumi was talking, all the things that I was thinking about, still the same 3-cylinder engine. You will feel slight little bit of that pulse of the 3-cylinder. It's reasonably quiet. It's reasonably smooth. So steering is light. So it's a friendly city car. Turning radius could be a little bit smaller, not as small as I would have expected. But any complaints on this front? Not really.
Since it's a Tata car, it must have 82 stars at Global NCAP.
Oh, it's 4 stars.
What?
Sorry.
No.
Not 82 is not even completely divisible by 4. 2 airbags.
Why?
Stars.
Tata means 5 stars.
Yeah, that's what you've been trained to think now. It's 4 stars. Deal with it. Next generation Tiago.
So I can't buy one.
Oh.
Because I'm not willing to do any research on the subject. If it's not 5 stars, I'm not buying one.
It's not a Tata. It's not 5 stars.
I mean, my fridge can be 4 stars. That's okay. The BEE stars, but
energy efficiency.
Okay, but wait, why did it not get 5 stars? Tata didn't pay for the 5th star wala testing wala.
The Tiago
protocol.
was always a 4 star.
Okay, the Tiago's never been a 5-star car. Okay, what I mean by Tata paid is most of these organizations, you have to pay to conduct the tests that create the 5th star testing. If the testing succeeds, you get your 5th star. Otherwise, your money is wasted. It doesn't mean Tata bribed anybody.
Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I think we've got the full picture. But let me just close off with this. You are expecting other automatic CNG cars to arrive now.
I certainly hope so. I think Tata will be the one to bring more. And I think it's great. They were the first ones to bring high variants of their models with CNG, right? Which was the right thing to do. They're doing that with the AMTs now. And I don't see any reason why they should not be doing this with their other models as well. And I would expect other brands to do the same. Because the absence of diesel for this segment, is a big one.
So Tata Punch Pure Empowered Plus S CNG AMT. Have I got this?
Oh God. Just the kind of stuff that we weren't looking for.
But
it's possible.
You got to have
when it happens, you know who to thank.
Hey, I'm trying to prevent that reality from happening. Okay, I'm literally Sarah Connor here.
All right, I think we should wrap this up.
Yes, I think. So that was a fairly long-winded chat on a very simple idea, which is Tata's taken their CNG car and added AMT to it, and the result is actually quite promising. If we missed anything that you'd like to discuss further, please do leave us a comment. We try and get to all of our comments. You can also listen to this if you prefer on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Amazon. And if you have incoming vehicles that you'd like to see discussed, leave us a comment. We are not promising that we can work really fast. It's beyond our bandwidth, honestly, but we'll try. Thank you.